Don't fracture the larynx. A blow to that area, you could get some swelling or bleeding and close the airway and get into a very rapid life or death situation.
I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, and obviously I haven't been available for like a week or so. So, first of all, I know what you guys are going to ask, and I did think it was a flagrant foul, and our reffing just needs to be better. And it's tough. Obviously, the refs are in a really difficult spot. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, in my opinion, is to make calls. All you do is get yelled at the whole time by everybody. You're never winning. So I think for us, as the league's just got to do better protecting our players in that regard. I don't really think that it was up for debate. Obviously, it wasn't called in real time. You go back and watch the clip. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Caitlin Clark was on the floor, already down, already dealing with a back that has been nagging her for weeks. And in the middle of a scramble for a loose ball, with 6 minutes and 52 seconds left in the second quarter, Alyssa Thomas planted her closed fist directly into Clark's throat, not her shoulder, not an accidental elbow, her throat. And then Thomas stood up, looked down at her, and stepped over her like she was a piece of furniture. Like the most watched, most talked about player in the history of women's professional basketball was just something in her way. The referees standing right there with a court-level view of the entire play called nothing. Not a whistle, not a review, not even a conference between officials. The game kept moving, and it took a medical doctor watching the footage the next day to put into words what a lot of people were already feeling.
I need more people like Stacey Dales to be speaking up. Like, the sports world is too quiet for me. I need people to be coming out of the woodwork because this shit is fucking unacceptable. I know people don't like Caitlin Clark. I know they don't want to ever acknowledge what she's done for the WNBA. I know women in the WNBA, black women as a whole, want to act like she's just irrelevant, act like any old person off the street that can dribble a basketball can waltz into the WNBA and do what Caitlin Clark did. I know that's the narrative surrounding her, but I need more people to speak up about this. This is not sports. This is not why we get into sports. This is not sportsmanship behavior. This is not the mentality that we want to see on our screen. This is not what we're trying to teach our young women who want to get into basketball, who want to play sports.
She goes up for jump shots, as ongoing and serious risks for concussions and dangerous falls. For every one of those plays, there are potentially catastrophic outcomes that the league has been treating like minor, and then Denubel said something that should honestly be the loudest headline in this entire story. He said, and these are his words, "I don't think there's anything she can do. Not she should practice better. Defensive technique. Not she should try to protect herself more carefully on drives." His answer was that there is no way for Clark to fully protect herself inside the current style of physical play she faces in this league. None. The responsibility, he made clear, falls entirely on the officials. Their job is to call the fouls. Their job is to create the deterrent. Their job is to make the floor safe enough that a player at her level does not have to absorb blows to the throat and hope for the best every single game night. And right now, that job is not being done. Footnotes. Here is what makes all of this harder to sit with. Clark herself came out and said it after returning to practice on
Dr. Nick high on stopping somebody when they're shooting it to the face. With the throat, it's obvious. The throat, that's a one-off. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. But you can crush someone's larynx with very little pressure. 10 to 20 pounds of pressure can damage the throat or larynx area, which is why it's off. You just are not allowed in any sports to go there.
July 3rd, 9 days after that game, 9 days of sitting with a back injury, 9 days of people asking her every question except the one she actually wanted to answer. She stepped in front of the cameras and said plainly that it was a flagrant foul. She said the league needs to do better protecting its players. She said officiating needs to improve, and in the same breath, she condemned the harassment and threats that had been directed at other WNBA players in the fallout. That is Caitlin Clark. She is sitting out games because of a back injury that was aggravated. In that same match, Coach Stephanie White did not mince words. She described what the officials did, or failed to do, as egregious. She said her player, a generational superstar, absorbed 2 uncalled cheap shots in a single professional basketball game, and the referees somehow still found a reason to review Clark for possibly hitting a defender.
Fracture the larynx, a blow to that area, you could get some swelling or bleeding and close the airway and get into a very rapid life or death situation. I wouldn't want to be the team doctor having to deal with that. That would be that's what keeps us up at night, those kind of things that you have to respond to on the court.
In the face, rather than addressing the fouls against her. Read that back slowly. The officials reviewed the play. For what Clark did, not what was done to Clark. The person on the receiving end of a fist to the throat was the one whose conduct got the closer look in real time. That is not a minor officiating error. That is a systemic failure. And then there is the back injury, because this story does not end with the throat. Clark aggravated her back during that same June 24th game against the Mercury, and it cost her 2 consecutive appearances. She did not play against the Sparks on June 27th. She did not play against the Aces on July 5th. She returned to practice on July 3rd, and even then she was cautious, indicating she could only realistically play one of the upcoming back-to-back games against the Sparks and Mercury, calling playing consecutive games in that state difficult. This is not the first time her back has been an issue this season. She had been listed as probable for 13 separate games because of the same concern before this.
For injury prevention, there's a lot athletes do, being in the best shape that they can be in. But once you're out there, I don't know how you avoid getting hurt in those kinds of situations. That's the thing. It's hard to protect yourself with those type of, and that's why they're flagrant fouls, right? There's no way to really protect yourself in those instances. Yeah, being fit, having heads up, but she's not going to change her style of play. You'd hate to see that. And then that's where whoever's trying to shut her down or intimidate her wins. If she starts changing her style of play, gives up the ball quicker, doesn't want to take those kinds of shots, doesn't want to drive, then whoever is trying to slow her down or intimidate her has won.
Latest incident point 13 games where there was a cloud over whether she could even take the floor, and the team still needed to prepare contingency plans around the health of a 24-year-old who should be in the prime physical years of her career. That is not normal. That is a pattern. And it is the kind of failure that, if it continues, sets the stage for exactly the outcome Dr. Daniel was describing. When Clark plays, the numbers show it. The Fever Liberty matchup on June 6th averaged 2.557 million viewers. On CBS, the most watched WNBA game on any network this entire season, and the second most watched women's basketball game on any network since the year 2000 when she misses games. Those numbers do not just dip. They fall off a cliff. WNBA All-Star Game ratings declined year over year in 2025, specifically because Clark's participation was compromised. The league can run every marketing campaign it wants. IT can put every promotional resource behind its product, but the data is not ambiguous. The audience that is filling those seats and driving those television.
Haven't got called, go back and post-game or whatever it is, teams submit clips, nothing really changes. So I think overall the league just has to do better, and we have to invest in those areas. The technology can get better. We can treat the referees a little bit better, pay them like they're full-time employees. I think things like that. And, I think a lot has obviously come after that. And as I've stood up here and said before, like the harassment, the hate, none of that is okay.
Contracts is coming specifically to watch Caitlin Clark, and every game she sits out injured is not just a loss for the Fever. It is a loss for the entire financial foundation the league is trying to build. And this is the cruelest part of the timing. Clark is having the best season of her career right now. She is averaging a career-high 21.2 points per game across 17 appearances in 2020. Larynx area can cause serious and potentially irreversible damage. A health emergency waiting to happen.
You're coming in here aware of what happened 2 nights ago? And that still happens? Absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And the reckless closeout that they actually reviewed, and the foot still comes down on top of the defender's foot that wasn't upgraded? Absolutely disrespectful. We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.